So I think it might have been the same day I started playing, or maybe it was like the day after, where Jupiter got me set up within the 77th. There was no Discord server, so everything was on TeamSpeak. Um, it actually took me a while to get used to Discord because for a long time, when I started playing Holdfast, everything was like forums, Steam, and TeamSpeak. Like I didn't really have a sense of like a broader community, so to speak. Um, so I joined as an applicant, which was sort of weird because there was no actual applicant rank. Everyone started off as a recruit, and they were either recruited in game or on the forums. Um, but this would be the equivalent of like the general of like the entire army recruiting their friend um, from somewhere else into their army, right? So obviously, I think the nepotism kind of like started over here, and I was invited to training, and Jupiter didn't actually attend this training. She just gave me the password, and I joined, and it's funny because the very first thing I hear is, "Who is Austro?" And obviously at the time I get what they were saying, right? Like I'm this new guy, I'm an applicant and everything, but I'm hearing those words like now and like in retrospect, and I don't think unless I joined a server where like it was just completely new people and no one had heard of me, but I don't think I'd ever hear those words be repeated now, like "Who is Austro?" Right? So that's kind of cool. Um, so yeah, I started attending line battles. Since they were like a brand new thing for me, I don't think I ever felt like they were a chore or they were like a grind. I was just like like a kid in a candy shop, right? Everything was new to me. Everything was all glittery and shiny, and oh, this is so cool, stuff like that. Obviously now I'm a bit more jaded and I treat it more as a chore, but that's for a different chapter. Um, so after attending for a little bit, things got even like more sketchy between me and Jupiter because Jupiter our relationship at this point was very weird because here you have like pretty much the leader of the regiment, since he did not use a mic because he didn't want to be outed as a guy. He sort of did like all the administrative stuff like behind the scenes. Obviously no in-game leading, nothing like that, just recruiting and just managing everything internally. um, so this was a person that I was actually in charge of on in Persistent Frontier. Obviously, I was a server owner, and they were like part of the admin staff underneath me. And this was a person that I scolded when I noticed that they were conducting, some serious admin abuse. But now all of a sudden, they're in charge of me, and they're the captain now. So it was sort of like a weird relationship, but we were still like friends because she got me into Holdfast, right? I'm going to use feminine pronouns because she was still masquerading as a girl. Um, so yeah, we were still friends, and she made me a really weird rank. She made me surgeon, like the actual rank surgeon, like it was 77th Surgeon Austro, and yeah, I just started playing as surgeon. Uh, I'm not sure what other rank I would be. I guess I would be like a private or something. I just completely skipped that. And I think some people were kind of like sketched out, like, what the hell, Astro? Like, they weren't like angry or weirded out at me personally. They were more like looking at Jupiter, like, you're, I think you're giving this individual, just some special, some, some nepotism going on here. Um, and let's see here. Um, Yeah, so I started playing as surgeon, and then one day, um, when I was playing as line infantry, the map switched to, I don't know exactly what the map was called, but it was a very narrow map, like a strand, and it had like this long ditch in the middle and like two hills on either side. And this was like an internal training, and they turned off shooting, and it was melee only. Now, 2017 melee, you're pretty much W keying and stab spamming. Like, the blocking was extremely unreliable. There was like a significant delay to when like you wanted to block and when the game actually blocked. So people were just stab spamming, and I started meleeing for like really the first time, and I was getting a lot of kills. And this is like when everyone was kind of meleeing. Like, my range was pretty good, my timing was pretty good, and I think it just like sparked a light bulb like in my head, like, hey, I think this is something I can do. This is something I can get good at. Obviously, I had no idea where that would lead. We all know where it led. Um, but I was enjoying myself, and I was enjoying, stabbing people. Um, so whenever, so I had a completely different approach to the game after that moment. Whenever I would be like in a public game, I would not just hide behind a wall. I would hide behind a wall, I would shoot, and then I would charge. I would just stab the guy. Like, melee became a thing that was like an option to me now, right? So I started engaging in it more. Um, and I was getting pretty successful. Um, so I was looking for someone to practice with within the regiment, and it was back then it was kind of hard because I had no sense of a broader community. There was no Holdfast Melee Discord, right? There was the official Discord where everyone just complained about Melee, and then there was sort of our regiment where Melee wasn't really discussed that much. It was just all like formations and line leading and stuff like that. Um, so one person that kind of stuck out was enlisted member named J Bob. J Bob is a French Canadian. He's currently in the 26th. I'm pretty sure he's an RD officer. Um, so we were both in the 77th at this point. This is like November-ish, 2017. Um, and I don't know exactly what I witnessed from him or what I saw from him, but I just remember kind of recognizing that, hey, like this guy knows how to melee. Like he engages in melee a lot. He gets a lot of kills. So one day I asked him like, hey, like, do you want to practice melee with me? And he was the first one I ever asked. Um, and at this point, I'm not really sure if there was a Palisade Arena. There was no public Palisade Arena map, meaning there was no public place to actually practice melee. Um, or maybe it was just that there was no public server, and the 77th also did not have it on rotation. So our only option was to join like an empty server that was on like a regular line battle map or like a regular public map, and we had to pick a spot, like go far left, go far right, I'll meet you there, and we dueled. Now, every time we finished a duel, we would have to walk 1 or 2 minutes to that spot again. Um, this is probably the greatest back in my day holdfast story you will ever hear. I know it's extremely cheesy for boomers to say, like, oh, back in my day, I had to climb like a 90-mile hill over a volcano with like acid rain pouring on me. And I know it's like a big meme, but this is like a true back in my day story. We had me and J Bob, we had no Palisade Arena, and after each death, we had to walk like minutes just to engage in the next duel. And you know what? We actually did it. We started dueling each other. Now, obviously, eventually we did get our own Palisade Arena map. Um, I know that I created Austro's melee server, but I don't think it was like at this point. I think it might have just been like a 77th practice server. Um, So J Bob and I started practicing melee, and I think we were pretty even, but I would get the better hand. I would get the edge over him, so to speak. Um, Now back then there was like really no blocking, so you had to like really know your range very well. I don't think crouch stabbing was a thing. I don't think crouch stabbing should be a thing right now either. Um, but now obviously you could block. It was possible to block, but you just had to really pay attention because there was no such thing as adjusting your block. Like if you blocked the wrong way, like you would not have enough time to fix it. So duels weren't just like instantaneous. They could last, but not very long, like at all. At all. Um, so then someone else came along. His name was Normal Guy. Uh, Today, I believe he's still in the 77th. He goes by Mr. Normal. So Normal Guy would uh, practice with me and J Bob a lot. I think I dueled Mr. Normal or Normal Guy much more than I dueled J Bob, and it was sort of the same deal. Like I can't really pinpoint why I've always like naturally been good at melee. Like I'm not sure how much of it is that I grinded melee and how much of it is that I had natural talent. Now I will say that I had like 2400 hours in Warband heading into Holdfast, so I did have like a good sense of that like a whole directional system. But I wasn't like a king at Warband melee. I think it was mainly just that I'm used to like a directional system that Holdfast uses. So I would also get the edge over a normal guy, and it was pretty funny because I got to a point where a normal guy was very frustrated that I'd always beat him, and then I'm not sure if I challenged him to a duel or he challenged me to a duel, but a duel came and he said, "You know what, Austro? Like I'm really gonna try in this duel. If you beat me, I will change my name to Normal Boy." His name was Normal Guy, and he said that he would change his name to Normal Boy if he loses, and he will keep that name um, until he beats me. So I ended up beating him, of course, and he changed his name to Normal Boy, and he remained Normal Boy for a very long time. And I think only recently did he change his name like to Mr. Normal. Um, so I was still a surgeon at this point, and one of the NCOs of Feudal Tube Sock, I challenged him to a duel. Um, Obviously, no Palisade. I think this was before Palisade Arena. I think it was on Spanish Farm. So after every duel, I'd have to like walk spawn to spawn to in Spanish Farm, which is crazy. And I beat the brakes off this guy, and I think he was a bit surprised because I was just a surgeon, right? Like I wasn't the Austro that we all know today. Um, I was just a surgeon that just popped up out of nowhere, and he was he didn't like really express his frustrations, but he pretty much said like, "Oh my god, I'm getting beaten by the friggin' surgeon," and this was really hilarious to me. I think this might have been one of the first times where I was like, I think I could be a pretty good dueler in this game, even though like melee is completely screwed up. I think there's actually something here with me and dueling. Um, let's see here. So after that, my melee prowess became pretty well known, like in the 77th. Um, I asked Rubba Dub Dub. I believe he was either like an officer or he was like a very, very high ranked NCO. I asked him like if I could conduct a melee training, and I don't think like the 77th ever hosted a melee training. There was really no point. Like meleeing was pretty much just hold W key and stab spam. Um, so he said, yeah, sure, whatever. And then when I conducted my melee training, I was running a bunch of drills. Like I had people stand still, and then I would charge them, and I would tell them like, "Hey, if I'm charging you with a down stab, I want you to block with a down stab." And this might sound like completely basic, like caveman level nowadays, But back then, like as I said with 2017 melee, you couldn't really adjust your block. So say if I started charging with an upstab and someone like down blocked, they would not even have enough time to make a split second decision and change it to an up block because of the horrible delay that blocking had with it. So if you got your block wrong, like when I started charging you, you were toast. Um, so I started. Uh, so these guys that I was training, they had no sense of blocking, like at all. Um, and I was teaching them, like, hey guys, like I know blocking is messed up, but it's still an option. Like when you get into melee, you should probably block first and then start stabbing, right? And some guys picked it up pretty well, and then some guys, like I think we had an NCO named like Hugo Schlitz or something, and he was not getting it. He just didn't get the point, and he was frustrated with the whole thing. But a little bit about Hugo. He actually gave me my very first medals in game. I think um, in the line battle we had an all charge, and it was like it came down to a one-on-one between me and some other guy, and I actually ended up blocking his first stab, which was like unheard of in 2017, especially like in a random line battle. You just stab spam, and I blocked his attack, and then I counter stabbed him, and obviously he didn't know how to block, or he didn't train how to block at all, and I killed him. So I think from that I got like the Medal of Excellence and a few other medals. So that was pretty cool. So I think the melee trainings did pay off. I think we did get up, we did do better in melee. Um, so after all this, after the whole regiment knew I was good at melee, after I did melee trainings and I started becoming friends with some of the enlisted members. Um, I became a corporal, and even though like I was well known within the regiment, this is all within a very short time span, right? Usually, corporals are made because they have experience in a previous regiment, or they've been in the regiment long enough that they sort of understand like how things work and stuff. But at this point, I think I might have only been in the regiment for maybe 3 weeks or maybe 4 weeks, and I was made a corporal. Now, obviously, when I was made a corporal, I skipped a lot of ranks. Like I was a non-existent rank to begin with, so things were like already pretty sketchy. But I was made a corporal by Jupiter, the person that I knew from beforehand, and people already like sort of knew we had a previous relationship. Um, so they didn't get mad at me; they got mad at Jupiter, which is the correct person. Like, obviously, you're gonna get mad at the person who promoted the guy, right? Not the guy that was promoted. Um, so things started to get like kind of um, rough between the the enlisted, the NCO staff, and Jupiter. But this was a very turbulent period for the 77th. So maybe me being promoted to corporal was like on the bottom of like what that regiment was dealing with, or was going to deal with rather. Um, so then I had my NCO training, and all I can say is that it was very weird, and I'm not even sure why it happened. Pretty much, it was me, Glofer, Feudal Tube Sock, and Rubber Dub Dub. And I think maybe Ares was there as well. All officers and NCOs. We went to Palisade Arena, and we all spawned as the officer class. And I led the line. Like they were all following me, so I was leading 4 guys, and I would just be like, right face, march, left face, march, and they would all sort of like follow me like a big game of Snake. And it just felt kind of weird because sure, like I was getting the commands right, but like it wasn't an actual situation, right? There was no like, let me get behind this hill, let me go for cover, let me scope out the map, like where's the enemy. Like there was none of that, so I felt like that entire training was sort of goofy, and I think they probably should have had like a better NCO training program. Like I'm not sure how regiments do it nowadays, but I felt like that was very bare bones and did not prepare me at all. Um, so outside of that, one of the major things I did do for the 77th when I was made corporal was I recruited a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people. I think within the span of 2 weeks, I recruited um, 70 people to the regiment. And I was able to do this because back then in 2017, there were no strict rules about recruiting. So a regiment could just spam chat with recruitment messages like every 2 seconds. And you could wait for people to die. You could seriously camp at spawn. This is what I did. Um, I would wait for people to spawn, and as they would begin moving, I would move with them. I would follow them, and then I would hold down my mic button, and I would just be like, "Hey, are you looking to join the biggest regiment in the 70s? Are you looking to join the biggest regiment in Holdfast?" And just stuff like that. And obviously, I was told off a lot. Like some of the things they called me, I can't even repeat here. But you kind of just had to move past that because for every for every three guys that were going to reject you, one guy might have stopped and talked to you, right? So you were kind of doing it for that one guy. And I ended up adding a bunch of people to Steam and inviting them to TeamSpeak, getting them all set up. I think my most famous recruit would be Highlander. I recently did an interview with him. He lasted much longer in the 77th than I did, and that was sort of his launch point to where he is now in the 47E, and he's like a hotshot officer now and stuff. So that, and he's, and I also trained melee with him a lot, and he's really good at melee now. I remember one night, I was messaging Jupiter, and I was like, you know what, Jupiter, I'm gonna get 10 recruits after work. Like I'm on my way home right now. I'm gonna get 10 recruits, and she was like, no way, that's impossible. And I legit got 10 recruits that night. Um, but I don't think that would be possible nowadays unless there was a sale because of all the restrictions put on recruiting. But I will say that those restrictions are well placed, but because I can understand why how that would be very toxic to a public player just looking to play, um, just being followed and stuff like that. Like it was pretty horrid, but I guess that was just the game back then. Eventually, I was put in charge of lights. Um, I'm not sure if it was my light company or if it was the lights of the entire regiment. Um, but I felt really comfortable leading like skirmishers because I felt that leading lines was too strict and too like I'd be too restrained about what I can do. Whereas with lights, like the formation is a bit easy going. Um, you don't have to worry that much about. Um, it's all like fire and will and just get behind a hill and just start shooting, right? And I remember one time I was leading lights, and our entire team went like far left, and I was leading them like towards the right. And I think we were the only ones that went towards the right. And of course, like the entire enemy team went towards us. And I don't know how we did it, but we did like this amazing last stand, and miraculously, we survived for a very long time. And then Jupiter comes towards like my skirmishers, and she suggests like, "Hey, why don't you guys move up?" Or I'm not sure if it was a suggestion or if it was like her demanding it. But obviously, if the leader of the regiment says, "Hey guys, move up," then you got to move up, right? And I didn't want to say anything because who am I to question the friggin' leader of the regiment, even if I had like a previous relationship with them? But it's like we moved up, and we immediately got surrounded and shot, and I felt like that was kind of lame because we were doing so well against like the whole team, just picking them off, and then here comes Jupiter, just messes everything up. But it wasn't that big of a deal because we had a lot of fun. But that was one of the rare times where I was actually in charge of a group of people. Um, I believe that was the first and last time with the 77th Lights that I was in charge of a group of people, and I had a lot of fun. Um, so those are pretty much all the highlights of me in the 77th. Everything afterwards is sort of like why I left and some of the lowlights, I guess. So I will save that for another chapter.